Everyone keeps asking me, Aaliyah, how was Denmark? I keep saying transformative, but now that I'm back home on American soil, let me tell you how. So my original goal was to interview people on the differences in American and Danish culture. When we first arrived, I immediately started to analyze my surroundings, wondering, does this look out of my ordinary? At every turn, from the airport to Arhus, I recorded everything, the land, the McDonald's, the cars, everything. I'm still wondering, what experience am I about to have? I honestly didn't know much about Denmark. I had heard of it before, of course, but I wasn't fully informed on their culture, government, or business practices. But I did come here to learn. When we arrived at the Aarhus Business College, we were immediately introduced to the European ways. After finally getting all of my things settled in, it took about 15 minutes for me to figure out the light switch, or in this case, the electrical switch. To conserve energy, all lights and electrical power in our rooms are controlled by room keys. When you leave and remove the room key from the slot, all electricity automatically shuts off. Imagine how much lower electricity bills would be if every time you left the house, all of your electricity powered down. After checking out our view, we met up with Nikolai, who welcomed us and taught us some of the house rules at the school. He introduced us to the meaning of hygge. Hygge is a Danish concept that describes a feeling of coziness, comfort, and well-being. To be honest, what you guys are seeing today was not my experience, but what you're hearing is. I personally spent a lot of time at the school with the students, and it was there that I realized I wanted to keep the authenticity of our conversations and decided not to interview anyone on camera. I just wanted to live in the moment. By the way, I was one of the few people that actually ate breakfast, lunch, and dinner on campus, which wasn't that bad. It was different, but it wasn't bad. Now, when I said we were immediately introduced to the European ways, I definitely meant stairs. I never considered elevators to be such a large consumer of energy, but now I can only imagine how much energy we're consuming. I will admit that in real time, especially on the first 2 to 3 days, it took me about 2 to 3 minutes to walk up the stairs because I had to stop and take breaks. Here we are, we're using the public transportation, and I'm showing us that we had to download this app called Mid-Traffic because this is how we purchase bus tickets and we're able to ride the bus. In Denmark, walking, biking, and public transportation are some of the main ways that people get around. This is Thor, pronounced Tor, in Denmark. He was actually our tour guide, and this was a 3-hour-long tour where we walked all around the city and visited statues, museums, and historical buildings in the streets of Aarhus. They did not play about Viking culture, let me tell you. In a second, you'll be able to see that they even have little Vikings on their traffic lights. Okay, hold on. Back to the food, because no offense, I thought that we were going to be eating beans and toast. I was not familiar about what Danish people ate. Now I know they eat a lot of pork. We had pork at least twice a day. But anywho, this food court has such a large variety of foods from all over the world. These buildings are actually part of a museum. It was a replica of the city that we had toured earlier that day. I love the style in this architecture. And you could actually walk into some of these buildings. Real merchants and people were in them, and some were just displays. Here we are at Adventure Sport. Adventure Sport is a clothing store with really sustainable practices, and they give back to their community. I really appreciate how they do business, and I was fascinated by their use of robots. This is the famous Arus Museum. I believe that Arus was actually the name of Aarhus about 500 to 1,000 years ago. I'll have to look that up again. But to the right, you'll see an actual elevator. This museum had about 10 breathtaking floors. You'll enter on level 4 and you'll choose to either go down to floor 1 and work your way up to 10, or you could go up to 10 and work your way down to 1. On our last night in Aarhus, we went to dinner, and afterwards we met up with some of the Danish students, and we did what the Danes do. Now we're in Copenhagen. This is Copenhagen, where Denmark burns their trash and turns it into power. They try to save and recycle as many natural products as possible, and yes, it absolutely did smell like trash. Bus tour. At this point, I was so immersed into the trip that I was having a good time and just taking in all of the history and hanging out with the locals. As you can see, this is about as good as a view as I was going to get with my girl Ariel. I did not want to push and move and get out in people's way. When we were done with the tour, we ran to see the change of the guards. We thought we missed it, but then we were able to move around and get a better look. And then I was able to see them walking to the square the next day. Okay, now these are the famous colorful townhouses in Nuhan, or called Nuhan. I don't know what I thought they were, but I didn't expect them to be actual places and restaurants and stuff that you can go into. But it was so surreal seeing them in pictures and on TV and on TikTok, and then now in my reality. Oh, here we played a fun game where we literally ran around the city and took pictures and found different monuments, and we learned all about the historical landmarks in Copenhagen. And we came in second place, so Team Leif Erikson all day. Some of my biggest takeaways are: choose to walk more. Just by simply walking, you're saving the planet and your body. Number 2, introduce yourself to a more organic diet or more organic foods. The food was so pure that my body didn't know how to act for the first few days. Certain things that we had both in common from America and Denmark taste different due to our use of food dye and chemicals. Number 3, in the words of Beyonce, America has a problem. Being a Black American, is easy for me to feel unsure around certain company. In Denmark, I felt so welcomed and understood. I think it's very admirable how they can work together as a society for a better economy. 4, dispose of items properly. I think we all know how to recycle, and we all know that you're not supposed to throw batteries in the trash, yet we just throw everything away. One thing that I definitely took away from this is how to be more mindful of how I discard things. So here it is. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to capture all of the friends I made, the conversations we had, or the history that I actually learned, but these are memories that I'll have forever. And I'm so grateful, and thank you to ACC and thank you to ACC Study Abroad.